From Cali to Tally, it's time to wake up. WarChant.com is your ultimate Seminole sports source, and this is Wake Up War Chant. Now here's WarChant.com's Aslan Hudjavandi and Corey Clark.
Wake up. Wake up. Remember Full House, Corey? Remember how they had that show within the show with Aunt Becky? Wake Up San Francisco. Sorry. Wake up. Ba, ba, boom, boom, boom. So cheery, so peaceful, so happy and serene. Right. I don't know if today's show will be in that vein. I'm not coming out the gates. There's no predisposed behavior attitude I have right now, Corey. Facts are facts. Florida State's now 4-4, coming off a 59-10 loss against Clemson. That is the tied for the worst margin of defeat in program history, I think. And it is, I know for a fact, it is the worst home loss in program history. This is the landscape and for which we now work and operate under, Corey. But before that, how's your weekend been?
Well, actually, not that people want to hear this, but I like the noon games are great. Like, in fact, when it's a blowout and I can write in the third quarter, I'm kind of done by the time 5 o'clock rolls around. So that was pretty nice. Got to watch the second half of the Georgia-Florida game. Got to go out and, get after it a little bit Saturday night. Nice dinner, maybe a little dancing.
Okay.
Some good stuff.
How was the scouting on the Florida-Georgia game? What do you think of Florida? It's going to be a problem?
I really do. Watching them, I'm like, okay, this is a team that I think Florida State can beat because they don't throw the ball. That kid threw for like 88 yards in that game, and 50 of them came on one play. He had like 11. The other 11 completions for like 40 yards.
Okay.
And I think even after that game, Florida State can stop the run. Like Etienne didn't do anything until I don't know if I had a hard time keeping track of the touchdowns, but I don't know that he scored or if he did. It was after the game was already out of reach.
No.
When Florida State was actually in the game and engaged, they weren't running against Florida State. All that stuff they tried up the middle didn't work at all. So I think Florida State can certainly hang with Florida but I don't know, again, can they score? Can they score against a good defense? That's where we are right now.
All right. Well, I guess
will there be anybody left on the football team?
Yeah. Let's unpack two of those things. I guess first off, before we get to the offense, let's talk about the whole, X, Y, and Z before they quit. That it was, I think, obviously probably the biggest sort of talked about point that came out of the post-game news conference with Willie Taggart and the players. I don't know if Marvin talked about it, but Brian Burns definitely talked about it, and he's your captain. But this whole concept of the fact that it was an disappointing loss, embarrassing performance, and I saw guys quit out there is what Willie said. And I guess there's so many, avenues to go towards. The first one is, and Ira made this point when you guys were doing your video wrap up, and I heard it when he was saying it, but I'm just focused on making sure you guys look all handsome and the lighting is perfect and the audio is great. Set my guys up for success. That's how I operate.
You're like a good point guard.
Yeah, something like that. I mean, this game went 7, 14, 21, 28, 35, 38, 45, 0 in the third quarter before Florida State finally got on the board. Like, I'm sure at some point they did quit. I believe Willie. I believe Brian Burns. This game, though, I feel like at some point was already well decided and determined before these kids started packing it in. And I hope that's not an excuse. I am excusing it. So yeah, I am excusing it. Get over it. But this game, I feel like was way over while these guys were still giving 100% effort. And I don't think anyone's really talking about that. I think right now it's let's smoke out these bums on the roster and get them out. They're cancers. They're ruining everything. Thank you, Jimbo.
There's two parts to that, man. I agree with what Ira and you are saying right now. You can't blame that loss on that team quitting. That team was not prepared to play. It was poorly coached. I mean, they had 16 penalties. The roughing the kicker penalty is one of the dumber penalties a Florida State players ever committed. I'm not calling Asante Samuel dumb. It was a dumb play, and he was coached poorly in that moment because why in the world are you even trying to block that? You've won the possession. You won the drive. Even if he makes the field goal, you're down 3-0 in the second quarter to the number 2 team in the country. You won it. They didn't score. What are you doing? It's not the fourth quarter of a 16-16 game. They're not trying to win the game with that field goal. It just made zero sense. It's zero awareness of of a football game, time and score and place. And that's on the coaches, man. The special teams are a joke. That's not on the players quitting. That's on either a coach or a staff or the message not getting across, but the special teams are a disaster. Don't blame that on kids quitting, because that has nothing to do with kids quitting. The offense can't move the ball against anybody with any talent at all.
Your offense, head coach.
That ain't on that. That's not quitting either. The second half, that offense, I think, just straight up quit. The first half, it was trying to do stuff and it couldn't. So again, that's not players quitting. I think what bothered Willie the most, if I could try to get into his head, is I feel like once Asante Samuel roughed that kicker and they went and scored a touchdown, that was a wrap for the ball game. Like, it was almost like his team just said, well, gave it a good shot. There goes that. The defense just stopped. In the offense, even late in the game when they're playing their third-string defensive linemen, they're not blocking them either. It's just like a jailbreak every play where the offensive linemen are just like, well, this game's over. It was just that I think is what really bothers him. And also, and Ira pointed it out, man, you got at some point, I mean, the two biggest drops of the game were by the guys that have been here forever. They would have kept drives going when the game was still close and manageable, and you actually had a chance to maybe even take a lead, and you got Nooney Murray dropping a ball. Then later in the game, he makes a great catch at the 5-yard line to get them in position for their first points. You know, of course, it's 45-0. Then he gets thrown out of the game for punching a guy. So what can you depend on these guys? Should they even be on the field anymore if you're trying to build for the future? That's stuff that Willie has to try to figure out, man. But again, I see both. I know they did quit, and it is, again, I talk about it a lot. But this is a team that 2 years ago quit at Louisville. It's a team that last year quit at Boston. When things go poorly, this team has that in their DNA. It's not out of it. But also, it wasn't all on them quitting. They weren't prepared at all. Well, let me take that back. I actually thought, honestly, the offense's game plan in the first, quarter and a half before it got out of reach, I thought it was pretty good. It was quick passes. He wasn't running for his life. The offensive line blocked up pretty well. His receivers just didn't make plays for him. And so I don't want to blame it on maybe the game plan of the offense. It's just that, you got guys that just don't make plays. And I don't think Francois was great. And I think after that hit where he got high load, he was awful. But I thought before that he was playing pretty well and just got, Cam Akers drops a pass and drops a ball on the ground inexplicably in consecutive plays. Gavinger makes the drop. Nooney makes the drop. It's just McKinney on the very first play of the game gets bulldozed backwards like Jalen Ramsey's coming at him by a Clemson corner. There's a lot of stuff out there that we've seen for 8 games now. And but I thought they made adjustments to try to get the ball out of his hands quickly, to try to get he rolled one time to avoid pressure, and they had chances to maybe get, in field goal range to move the ball. And then after that, it just became a chaotic mess. After they got down, 14-21-0, and everybody knew the game was over because they can't score. Yeah. But I guess, so there's 2 things. He's right to be mad that they quit. And he has to clean that up in this program because there's been too much of it for too long. They don't handle adversity well at all. So I don't know how you do that in the next 4 games. You don't. But by next year, most of that DNA has to be cleansed. It's got to be out of there. But make some adjustments with your offense, man. It's an embarrassment. And that's both sides of it.
I mean, it's difficult to talk about all this because, you point out these things that happen in the game, the roughing the kicker, the drop passes. These are things that probably changed the trajectory of the game. I don't think it obviously changed the outcome. Florida State's going to lose to Clemson. But, maybe it's not the worst loss in program history. Maybe it's 45-17 or something along the lines of what Gene or Jeff Cameron predicted on War Chant Report.
But I mean, is that supposed to make you feel better? I mean, are we in a better place if they would have lost 45-17? And maybe they quit in the late part of the fourth quarter as opposed to such earlier in the game. I mean, I know if I played football,
don't you want them to play smart?
Yeah.
Then they don't.
They don't.
They don't. The smartest thing I saw anybody on the Florida State team do yesterday was, I think it was in the first quarter, when Francois got sacked for the first time.
Cole Minshew
was watching the play, ready to fall on a fumble. Yeah. That's heady. That's smart, man. That's somebody knowing time and knowing the context of this football team. Like, man, there's a good chance if he hadn't thrown the ball yet, he's getting sacked, and that means he's probably a good chance he's going to fumble. So let me hop on this, and he did. But all of it. DJ Matthews on the punt return. All of it. The special teams is awful. The very first play of the game, the kid running it out, number one, for some reason.
I didn't have that big of a problem with that. But
had they busted one this year?
No.
Know your opponent. You're not going to bust a long kick return on Clemson. You're just not. You haven't done it against Samford. You're not doing it against Clemson. Take the ball at the 25, because heaven knows when you try to return a kick, you're going to block someone in the back. So they get their first possession of the game at the 7 on a kickoff. I mean, it's stuff like that, and it's like a snowball. It keeps going and building. In 16 penalties, a gazillion just dumb mistakes. They're just not well coached. And again, these guys have been with them for 11 months. So I'm not blaming it all on this coaching staff, but you don't have to exacerbate it. If they just played a smart football game, just everything, just smart, did everything fundamentally correct, they still don't beat Clemson, obviously. But yeah, they don't embarrass themselves, I think. And that's, not only are you out-talented, which you obviously are. I don't care about the star rankings, man. Watch those two teams play. It is a world of difference in talent. And that some of that is development from this coaching staff. They're not developing, fine. But watch those two teams play. You know they're out-talented. So you can't be the lesser talented team and play much, much dumber and less disciplined. That's how you lose by 50 points.
The thing is, when Brian Burns gets a sack, we all sit here and we celebrate how awesome Brian Burns is. And it's totally fair. This is not a criticism at all of Brian Burns. I know people are like, this, no disrespect intended, and they're being disrespectful. This absolutely is no disrespect on Brian Burns. Burns does awesome. We celebrate him. We get sacked. We talk about how lousy the offensive line is. It's never like, oh, well, maybe we're playing against good players too. It's just, it's like this sort of dichotomy as a fan where when your guy does well, it's because he's awesome. And then when you guys stumble, it's because you guys suck. And like it goes to your point, I think, that as bad as it is, it's 59-10, worst loss in program history at home. Like, this team had moments in this game where they could have done well, and they didn't. And then we're starting to take these sides. These fractures are starting to happen in terms of the way fans talk about things, which is obviously not going to affect the team. But for a guy like me who's got to be on a message board posting stuff every day, you start reading it. It becomes a little bit annoying. It's just like people are like, it's the proof's in the pudding, dummy. Look at the players. The players stink. Look at the kids who were here from those great recruiting classes. That's who you're depending on. It's all Jimbo's fault. Then you have people that are saying like, Willie's got to go. It's all this like cacophony of just people like just arguing over. There's no right answer, but there's problems everywhere. Like Jimbo left some bad things here. I understand that. There's bad DNA, as Corey calls it. There's bad habits. But man, I mean, you've got 15 spring practices. You had the chase. You had a 6-figure field trip to IMG Academy. You had a preseason camp. You had 9 weeks of football. You had a bye week in there. I mean, I'm not saying that you got to have 85 guys sold out to play Taggart football. But, man, there's not 45 kids on that roster that you can feel good about, you can just go and roll out there with. Like, and that's what we're going to hide behind now. And hide behind sounds, that's probably a little too strongly. But that's what everyone's going to talk about now for the next 6 days is that this team quit, I think. I don't think anyone's going to talk about the fact that, You know,
I hope not. I hope not. I hope that's not true because that certainly wasn't what I wrote. Well, I wrote that before he had his press conference.
No, I don't think. It's because of what he said.
Yeah.
It's Jimbo would never say anything like that. And that's not a defensive Jimbo. It's just that's what you're used to getting fed. Like Jimbo would always be like, "We got to coach him better. We got to execute it better. We got to play better." You know. And then Willie's straight up coming out. Listen, that was embarrassing. We've got quitters on the team. Called the kid losers. When you throw a punch, that's what losers do. I mean, I don't have a problem with that, but like,
well, I don't either. That was like, I want to say this. I'm not completely fired up about how he handled it because
he painted himself in a corner, man.
He sure did. Now he's got to make changes immediately. I think NC State, it better be some changes everywhere. There better be changes everywhere. Otherwise, it was just talk. They're not going to play. We're going to watch the film, and whoever quit, they're not going to play. All right, well then we'll see it on Saturday, man. Because one of the negatives that Jimbo had, in my opinion, especially late in his career, is he wouldn't pull guys that played poorly. They would still start. They would still play.
McFadden.
There were plenty of examples. He's like the ringleader of those examples, but there were others.
15th chances.
So you know that, but also he can use that once. Like that's his like get out of jail free card. This one time, he can blame it on the culture. And I get it, man. I do think the culture is the reason they lost by 50 points. It's part of the reason they lost by 50 points. The other part is, man, they don't move the ball on offense. Their offense is a train wreck. So 3 factors. Clemson's obviously really good, by the way. Like they're with that kid starting at quarterback. I think they've outscored opponents now 170-20. I mean, they're really good. I don't know if they're on par with Alabama.
They're not, I don't think.
They might be the only team that can compete with them because those skill players are good. They have receivers that actually go make plays. Their skill players are really good. I think that running back is good. And that defensive line could be a problem for Alabama. Not enough to keep them under 35 probably, but it could be a problem. I think, and that kid is awesome. That kid's going to be the number 1 pick in the draft in 2 years. Or 3 years, whenever he gets drafted. That kid's arm, you saw it live. Holy moly.
Yeah.
That thing is preposterous. So he's really good. He makes them a completely different team. Sorry, Kelly Bryant. But and that's another thing. Like, what would the score have been last year? That's what I was thinking about when it was halftime and it was 28-0. And I was thinking back to last year when, I think that game last year was 17-0 at halftime. And I'm like, man, what would the game have been last year if this kid was playing quarterback for Clemson? And it would probably have been 28-31-0. I don't know that team last year would have just folded. And that's not all on Jimbo, man. We can't just say that's all on Jimbo because, you brought it up. What was the trip to IMG for then? You've had 11 months now, man. You at some point you've got to instill your own culture. You can't just blame the other guy and then say, wait till I get my new guys in here, my own guys in here. Well, all right, man, but you recruited some of these guys when you were in South Florida. Like they're not all. We can't blame the culture for 59-10. It's part of the reason because I do think they think it's okay to quit. That's just what this program has become. Willie hasn't stopped it. You know what I mean? Like that's the issue. He can say that it's a bad culture. Well, your job at $5 million a year is to flip that stuff, man. And I know I guess it takes longer than 11 months, obviously, but flip it.
Well, I think 11 months. I think it's fair to expect this team to look a lot better than they do at this point. And there's a lot of people that don't agree with that. Like I tweeted something about the fact that, like, I mean, can we just we're not even really getting a dent in the cultural problems of this program. And then people are like, what do you expect? Rome wasn't built overnight. This is an emotional response. Get over it. It's Jimbo's fault. Like, all right, but like, I think a coach probably has 2 or 3 bedrock things that they can come in and pretty quickly flip. And I'm not saying you're going to go from the 115th ranked offense to the 2nd ranked offense or anything like that. But I really think there's like 2 or 3 bedrock things that you can touch and you can quickly change, at least to the point where you're not going to have futility records in week 9 of a football season. I really think effort's one of those. People are like, well, you can't coach effort. Yes, you can. You absolutely can coach effort. You absolutely can make things unacceptable. These things are not acceptable in my program. I just know, I think maybe Willie focused on academics, and that's not a knock. Maybe this whole I mean, obviously this, the whole no excuses, blame no one, because these kids aren't blaming each other. They're not making excuses. So, I mean, they're following that sort of thing. But he talked about one of the first things he realized when he took this job was, like, these kids weren't having fun. They weren't playing for each other. So I don't know, maybe this whole, like, we want to create this vibe that we're all in it for each other. Maybe but I feel like effort's part of that. Like, if your whole thing was like, you guys, I watched you on tape for a year. None of y'all had fun. You weren't playing for each other. I saw you quit, and you wouldn't quit on your brother. Like, I mean, that's what he came in. That was his, like, guns a-blazing approach. Here we are, 8 games, 9 weeks of football season, all the other preseason stuff we just touched on, and that's still a problem. That's a problem.
Yeah, I'm really interested. Excuse me. I'm sorry. I'm really interested in this next week against NC State, because obviously they just gave up 50 to Syracuse. That's not a good defense. They've given up 92 points in the last 2 games. So what is Florida State's offense going to look like against these guys? Because, again, I get it, man. That we knew it going in. Nobody expected Florida State to do much on offense against that Clemson team. And they had some of those plays were there. The catch that Terry made on the sideline when he spins away from the guy. If he doesn't get tripped, man, that's a 70-yard touchdown. And you and I obviously are the 2 biggest Tamori and Terry supporters in the universe.
Yeah.
But the Clemson kid probably keeps his feet and scores a touchdown. The Florida State kid gets tripped up by the first guy. That's kind of how it goes. I thought even after the game against Wake Forest, I thought Cam Akers was a no-show. He had one nice run on a 3rd and short where he really ran hard, but he didn't do anything except fumble the ball and drop a pass.
Get an unsportsmanlike conduct penalty that made it
again that too. Like what? It's just okay. Those things are they're just unacceptable, man. And I want to know they should be unacceptable, but are they? Like, what's going to be the repercussions for Cam fumbling the ball, dropping a pass, and getting an unsportsman penalty after DJ Matthews inexplicably lets a ball land and roll an extra 10 yards? Or no, I think he picked that one up and then got gang tackled by 4 guys. Yeah. What's the punishment there? Is Alec Eberle, by the way, the guy that asked the question last week about Alec Eberle's snaps?
You're right.
Apologize.
Sorry,
you're right, man.
Sorry.
That's completely derailed a 23-yard loss. And then another one that was the one that they got the false start on, he snapped it and it hit his butt and just fell down. Like he thought Francois was under center for the first time all season.
We don't do that around here anymore, Alec. We don't do that around here.
That's an issue. Again, you look at those guys. You got the 5th-year senior offensive lineman. You got your senior wide receiver. You got your junior wide receiver. You got your sophomore running back, but who's played a ton of football, all making these just awful mistakes and dumb penalties. And I'm not even talking about roughing the kicker. That was on another level of dumb. But just punching people from the sideline, punching people after the guy punches you in the back, you just turn around and jack him in the face. I know it didn't hurt him because he's got a helmet, but man, you've been playing enough football to know that's unacceptable. And trust me, man, I was down on the field when when Zaquandre White threw that punch from the sideline.
I didn't even see that. So wait, walk me through that, because I saw the Naquan thing, but I saw
the tail end of it because I was just getting onto the field. Florida State, I think, had just picked up a first down near that sideline, and for whatever reason, Zaquandre White's right there on the sideline, and he throws a punch at the Clemson kid. And Willie Taggart, in no uncertain terms and with some language that can't be repeated, told him to get off the field. And security guys, Florida State's own security guy, he was ejected anyway, but Florida State's own security guys came and got him too. Because it didn't seem like Zaquandre wanted to leave right away, but Willie screamed at him to get off the field. So it's not like Willie condones it.
Right.
But at the same time, man, these guys, you got to have guys that want to play smarter than that. There's nothing worse, and this is where I agree with him on. There's nothing worse than guys showing fight when they're that kind of fight when they're down by 50 points.
Fake tough guy stuff.
But not like, can't handle losing.
Yeah.
Run around and
swag surf before the game and all that stuff.
And when you score a touchdown or do something well, you'll certainly celebrate what you've done and celebrate yourself. But when you're losing, you throw punches. Those are the worst kind of competitors, man, because I don't really think that's competition. You know, how many games did Michael Jordan lose in his life? A lot, hundreds. I don't remember him just straight up throwing punches at guys because he was losing. Well, he would punch Steve Kerr in practice because he's an asshole. Bleep that, sorry. But he you know, if you can handle the winning, you got to be able to handle the losing, and you got to play hard. That stuff doesn't fly, man, and it's just all got to be cleaned out of this program. And from the way that Willie Taggart was talking, it seems like the way it's going to get cleaned up is just to be graduated out of here and other kids move in, because it sure seems like 8 games in now in 11 months on campus that it's not a fix. He can just change an attitude of a team by himself. And I can understand why that would be concerning to Florida State fans, because that's kind of what he's paid to do. Because if we're just waiting for his guys to come in before he can get this thing rolling, well, then now you're looking at 2020 at the earliest. And, you know, you don't really have that kind of time at Florida State. This thing needs to get cleaned up a lot quicker than that. But again, what are they going to look like the last 4 games of the season? Did this completely demoralize them? Because it's one that it could. I mean, 59-10 would demoralize anyone. It should. It you know how close it was to being 66-3. AJ Litton pulls that ball out of that kid's hands in the end zone, or it's 66-3. I mean, not that it's. I mean, well, I guess what's the difference when they already put up 59? But that's an embarrassment, man. That's an embarrassment, and that's your football team. And I know most of those guys you didn't recruit. I get it, but it's your football team. It's the one you're getting paid $5 million to coach. That's your team that lost. It wasn't Jimbo Fisher's team, and now his team did lose on Saturday too. But your football team lost 59-10. So it's on you to either get those guys to play hard, get them to play smart for once, or, you know, we'll just wait till 2020 until your guys get in here and we can actually see a good football team again.
I was thinking, I mean, I think even the whole wait for a guy to get his guys in, even like the 3 year window is like unfair. I think you almost need, like, if you're going to be that rational, practical guy, like everybody calm down, give him some time, let him get his guys in here. Like if you're going to subscribe to that, like that's like 5-6 year plan. Because not only do you have to get your guys, and you have to like get your guys on top of your guys, you know, like you have to bring in your recruiting class. And then some of those guys aren't going to work in, but then you're going to have another set of reinforcements to come in and fill those gaps in. That's like a 5-6 year turnaround.
Well, we know he ain't got that kind of time. It's, you know, he's got at most 3 years. That loss doesn't mean he can't do it. Understood. Now I know. I mean, it's just what was maybe the most disappointing thing about it is they had played well. They had played better. And, you know, even against Miami, they competed. They just had a 5-minute stretch that lost them the game, but they were the better team that day, or at least as good a team.
What's that saying, though? I mean, I don't know. I agree. Like,
I mean, but it's the competition level, right? Like, they competed. They played hard, and they got better against Wake. I mean, look, they held Wake to whatever, 10 points until the game was over, and you saw Wake just put up 56. So the defense played well against
Louisville. Louisville's terrible. I think.
Well, again, but is Louisville that much worse than Florida State? No, but we can't. I mean, I guess we can look at every game in a vacuum, but you know, we look at Florida State beating Wake, and again, I'm just saying they held them to 10 points because they scored a garbage touchdown, and then Wake the next week goes on and scores 56. Well, Wake is capable of scoring points. It's a decent offense. It's an okay offense. So Florida State should get credit for playing well against them. And I guess my point was they had just played well against Wake. That was a good team. It wasn't, and it was a nice win. It wasn't a great win. It wasn't a super win. I wasn't floored by how well they played, but they had played better. And you thought they were making strides. And then again, as soon as a kid roughs the kicker and demoralizes the stadium and demoralizes that sideline, it's like a turtle putting his head back in the shell, man. They just didn't want any more of it. You want to go score in 2 minutes before the half? Sure. We'll even give you the ball back right afterwards so you can go down and score again. You want to not block? You want to not catch a ball? You want to drop a ball on the ground? All that stuff. You want to block somebody in the back on a kick return or throw a punch? It's all on the table now, man, because we gave them 7 points, so they might as well get up 59-0. And how do you get that out of your system? You know, I don't know, and we can say that because I was thinking about it, man. I know I'm rambling. It was a weird game. It's a weird game to pontificate on, but I was thinking. I really I caught myself thinking, man, there's no way a Jimbo Fisher team would have lost 59-10. Zero chance. But again, I was there 2 years ago in Louisville.
Yeah.
You know, they did. You know, that was 63-10 early in the fourth quarter, man. That could have been 80. Just like this one could have been 80.
And I keep trying to ask my friends, I'm like, what felt worse? Because the Louisville game, I was still a fan. Clemson game, I'm sitting in that hermetically sealed press box, and you feel totally detached about it. But I think it's an emotional response. All my friends are like, are you serious? They're like, the Clemson game. My brother's like, the Clemson game. Everyone's saying the Clemson game. But, again, I think it'd be interesting to ask people that question like 6 months from now. Because it's still fresh and raw, obviously. But
I think the thing about the Louisville game, though, that maybe bothers me a little bit more is Louisville wasn't even that good. I mean, I guess we didn't know that at the time, but Louisville lost like 4 or 5 games that year.
Yeah,
this Clemson team is really good. Like they've been doing this to everybody. Louisville didn't do that to anybody. And then they won some games that year, but they weren't winning 63-10. By the way, J.J. Cosentino 10 unanswered points to close that one out up in Louisville, if you remember correctly. So they didn't, So again, in the Boston College game, scoring 3 points on the road to Boston, all that stuff, man. I don't know. I don't know how you fix it. I'm not smart enough. I'm not smart enough to know how you fix it, and I'll get paid $5 million a year to fix it. But to just give up one touchdown because of a bad penalty by a freshman who's trying really hard and had just made a really good play in the end zone to break up a pass, and then you give up a touchdown and then say that's it, that's a wrap. That's on everyone, man. That's not just on the players. Some of them quit, sure. The talent isn't as high as we thought it was, sure. But some of that's on the coaching staff, obviously. It's your team. If you can't get them to play hard, get people in there that can play hard. Quit depending on guys you can't depend on.
There's a really good moment from Hard Knocks a few years ago with the Bengals. I think maybe the first time they covered the Bengals. I think the Bengals were on the program twice, so no, it was the second time they were with the Bengals. But anyhow, it was a preseason game. And Marvin Lewis tells those guys, this is your team. Find a way to fix it. Reach down inside and be a bleeping pro.
Listen to me. This is a long-ass season. This is a grind. And you can't give up the ball. You can't miss tackles. You can't step out of bounds. You can't have penalties. You can't field punts on the 1-yard line. Some of you wonder why you don't play and start. Because you won't tackle on an interception. Because you don't know who to block. So you better make up your mind what you're going to do. It's your football team. Find a way to fix it. Reach down inside and be a pro.
Like, I don't want to hear knuck if you're buck. I don't want to see null drill. Like, just play that quote just on loop. Because it is. I mean, ultimately, they're going to have to figure this thing out. And as Jimbo said, no one's coming to save you. No one's coming to save this team, at least not for the next 4 weeks. And they need to figure out some way to not get embarrassed against their biggest rival at home and maybe string together at least one more win so you don't go out on a 5-game losing streak. As we go out, though, Corey, just I know we've got to get out of here. Real quickly, just offensively then, the second part of this whole equation, is it time to try to maybe give just roll James Blackman just because? And I hate that's the worst rationale in probably all the sports or any line of business when you decide to change something. You're just like, we might as well. But have we hit the point now where it's like, might as well?
I don't know. It's going to be interesting with Willie how he handles that. Number one, we don't know if Francois will even be okay. I mean, he did leave the game. It might have been a concussion. He said he hit his head on the ground, so that could be something where maybe he's not even available to play. And I'm certainly not putting any stock into the Blackman touchdown pass. I mean, it's a nice play to move to escape some pressure and find a guy open. My biggest problem with DeAndre, and I've said it a million times, but it's not even that he won't run now. He can't. He literally has the mobility of Chris Winkie. He just is not and I don't know if it's still the injury. I don't know if it's hesitation. I don't know if he's just not as athletic as we all thought. Whatever the case may be, or if he put on, some sort of weird muscle when he was rehabbing last year, but he can't move. That Trevor Lawrence kid is 2 times faster than DeAndre Francois. He didn't run at all, but when he did run the one time and Nasruddin got kicked out of the game, you saw some wheels.
Yep.
Francois can't move. Even on design runs, he's getting 2 yards and sliding. There's the one time that he did escape pressure, man, that defensive end was chasing him down. He can't move. And not that Blackman is Michael Vick or anything, or Johnny Manziel. He doesn't have that in him either, but I think he's healthier. And, yeah, man, I don't know if that's fair to Francois to just say, hey, man, I can't fire all these guys. So we're going to try a new quarterback. I don't know, because I don't know that he's the reason they're losing games. But he's certainly not the reason they're keeping it within 40 against Clemson, because they can't. Because he didn't make throws. And, again, he was pressured a lot. I get it, man. It's hard to even comprehend what that must be like to play behind that line and to play in an offense that doesn't do diddly poo, except through your right arm if you make a great throw. And even when you do, sometimes your receivers drop passes.
But he was missing a lot of throws, too. And
I thought he was good in the first. I really did think he was pretty good in the first half until
good enough. He was good enough, yeah.
Yeah, until the high-low happened. And then after that, I mean, he got hit really hard. That was a dirty hit, man.
Yeah.
Maybe it wasn't dirty. Maybe the kid tripped, but he was full steam and diving at a guy's plant leg. That was bizarre. I don't know why he did that. So I shouldn't. I take it back. I shouldn't call the kid dirty, but it looked dirty. It looked like he was diving straight at his plant leg for some reason. But man, he got ripped on that play, and then he wasn't anywhere close to the same after that. He wasn't stepping into throws. He couldn't move at all. Anyway, so man, yeah, I don't think either one of them are the answer.
Clearly.
And I think Willie needs to figure something out, because he can't do this again next year. You literally have one of the 10 worst offenses in the country with Cam Akers on your team, and with Patrick, Tamori and Terry. It's with Harrison and Keyshawn Helton and young guys that can move.
Trey McKitty, but he had a bad game. Trey had a bad.
Yeah, he's kind of been not great for a while now. He's got to. I don't know what he's got to change a mindset or just get stronger.
Trey McKitty graded at 20% in pass protection. Trey McKitty was the overall lowest graded person on offense for Florida State. Not one single starter graded above 59%.
Yeah, and again, I think before we go, we have to keep in mind that it was against one of the best defenses in the country.
But that's who you're chasing. You got to beat really that good team.
No, for sure. But we knew it was going to be a tough challenge, and they just aren't anywhere close to answering that challenge this year. They just can't move the ball, man. They just can't against competent defenses. Still, there's no excuse to be that bad. And, you've got to figure out, you just can't, we can blame the culture and the DNA of the program, sure, but at the same time, you're paying a lot of people to figure out a game plan to move the ball. In only other than the Wake Forest game, in the second half against Louisville, you've done kind of jack squat against ACC teams, and that's got to change. So, and you also got a touchdown taken away against Miami. Let's always remember that. But so that to me is what I'm looking for these next 4 weeks, because you're not going to be playing Clemson the rest of the way. Florida's a good defense. They're not Clemson. Notre Dame's a good defense. They're not Clemson either. They're close, but they're not Clemson. NC State and Boston College, you should move the ball on those teams. There's no excuse not to move the ball on those teams. Are we going to be sitting here at the Florida game and watching this offense put up 10 points and 244 yards and just throwing our hands up and saying there's nothing we can do? That's not what you get paid to do.
I will say the good thing is, and the guy that used to be here would talk about this whole, we keep focusing on the playoff and we don't appreciate, the good seasons that win over the rivals. Despite how horrible this all feels, I really still do believe, whether or not and at this point the Bulls season, it's probably not happening, and I got to probably come to grips with that. If they win the last game in November, we're going to feel pretty good, I think, no matter what, going into the offseason. So there is that. Even if it's another ugly 2011 debacle where just beat these bastards at this point. You need something to feel good about to hang your hat on. I don't think beating Notre Dame is going to make you feel that good in December and January. as much as it would be to beat Florida. So there's still that.
And again, they're beatable. I mean, their offense isn't anything special at all. Their defense is good, but their offense isn't anything special at all. They're certainly beatable. That's not a terrible matchup for Florida State. But again, going into that game, which team do you think is going to play smarter?
Yeah. At this
which
point,
team's going to make the dumb mistakes and which team isn't? That's what other than the quitting, which we all saw, man, 16 penalties is a joke.
Pre-snap penalties.
4 or 5 of them were pre-snap penalties.
Yeah.
You had to call a timeout on a punt return.
The first punt of the game, first quarter. Clemson's going to punt. You stopped them. Just get the punt.
And that's obviously something that has, I don't believe in the old coach's notion that special teams is 33% of the. Yeah, it's not. It doesn't. Just the math doesn't add up. There aren't a third of the plays in a game aren't special teams plays. But
unless you're Logan Tyler.
Yeah, hey, congrats! Shout out to him again for tying the school record for punts in a game, and he also broke the school record for punting yards in a game.
Oh, all right.
So there you go. Saw a little history there, but
more than that.
Your special teams is a joke. It's awful. It's just awful. There was nothing they did well. They didn't cover punts. Well, you never got to see them cover a kickoff. The kickoff returns were awful with blocks in the back every time. You muffed a punt. You couldn't cover anyone. You roughed a kicker when they're settling for a field goal. Everything about special teams was an abject failure.
Oh, did you mention the fact, too, that they whiffed? Like, even the punt coverage, like Clemson broke a couple punt returns on them?
Yeah, they had a couple long punt returns, including one where Logan Tyler pinned him to the sideline.
Yeah.
And they still let him go all the way around to the other side. They are not coached well. And what's up to Willie Taggart, what's imperative for Willie Taggart this offseason, whether they're friends or not, you have to do what's right for Florida State football. And if somebody on your staff, and there's probably a couple, aren't getting the job done, you have to make changes, man. And he's shown the ability to do that. He fired coordinators in the middle of a season. He's shown the ability to make hard changes, something, by the way, the old guy didn't do.
Right.
But he's got to.
You think so? Like, really? Like, year one, we're going to fire people?
I can't imagine you special teams. I mean, there's nothing about them that they do well. DJ Matthews has had a couple of nice punt returns. That's it. They don't cover punts well. They don't make field goals. They don't block field goals. They don't block punts. They all they do is block. The only blocking they do is in the back for penalties. So I don't know they have to be one of the worst special teams units in the country, and there's no excuse for that. The offense, sure, you've got linemen that can't block. The defense, okay, you're learning a new system. Special teams is special teams, man. You have good athletes to choose from, and you look like this. So yeah, man, he's got to make his job's on the line, his career's on the line. He can't just hang by his guys because he's hanging by. I mean, he's got to win football games, and there's no way if somebody that preaches accountability can look at what he's gotten from that unit this year and say, yeah, that's up to a Florida State standard. That's up to a Willie Taggart standard. Because if it is, that's really scary. Because that's not up to a Florida State standard, or it shouldn't be up to a Willie Taggart standard, because it is an awful unit. All around, like all encompassing. There's nothing they do well. Okay. And it was on full display. You have a coach now dedicated specifically to it. And your wide receivers aren't any good, other than 15. The ones that play anyway. And he never gets the ball thrown to him.
Corey, we got to go out on a high note. I was trying to let everybody feel good about the fact that they're going to be able to beat Florida because you took one for the team. You did your work really well and industriously on Saturday to go home and scout tape against Georgia, Florida. So we get that's good. That's a good thing. Right? So winnable game.
I really did have a good night I had a good night on Saturday night. It was fun. Had a good time. It's been a good weekend. The weather was beautiful.
It is beautiful weather out there. But I hope everyone's enjoying fall right now, wherever they are listening to this program.
Yeah, and guys, it will get better. It will get better. As I wrote earlier or late last week, Clemson gave up 51 on their home field in 2013. They've done all right since. So not that Florida State is anywhere close to that Clemson team where that Clemson program was in 2013 right now. It's not. But it's just maybe it's just one game, because I guarantee you people walking out of Death Valley in 2013 thought, oh boy, we're never going to get there to the promised land with Dabo. Yeah. This was the best team he's ever had, and he just got rolled by Florida State. Yeah. So there are brighter days ahead. There's got to be changes made. There just has to be.
Brighter days ahead. Just go on brighter days ahead.
Sorry, I'm going to get back into. I can feel my voice getting back into complaining again. Sorry, guys. That's my fault. You know I love you. It was a beautiful weekend. I hope you were with your family. You got to enjoy maybe a few cocktails, a nice meal. Florida lost, Miami lost, Jimbo lost.
Yeah, there you go.
Oregon lost. A lot of
USF
nice
lost. Everybody
USF lost. Man, how did Western Kentucky do? Did we look at them up?
I did not look them up.
So there were a lot of good things that happened this weekend. Just one bad little stretch for 4 hours in Doak Campbell Stadium. But let's just purge it. Let's just forget it ever happened.
Yeah, they'll be better. We'll try to get better as well. He's Corey. I'm Aslan. Thanks for listening. We'll catch up with you all tomorrow.
WarChant.com is the ultimate inside source for FSU football and recruiting. And now you can get in on the action for free for an entire month. WarChant.com is offering a risk-free 30-day trial subscription. Get full access to the #1 website covering the Seminoles just by entering the promo code WarChant30. That's WarChant30. Sign up and get in on the world's most active FSU message boards. Receive breaking news, stories from our award-winning staff, plus get exclusive interviews and videos. Just enter the promo code WarChant30. WarChant.com, your ultimate Seminole sports source.